This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to provide medical advice. It exists to inform and to entertain. Welcome, everyone. This is Poor Historians, a podcast misadventuring into the archives of medical history and beyond. Each show, we dissect a history of medicine topic from the past to learn a little something about how medicine got to be the way that it is today. I'm Dr. Max, and I'm joined here by my good friends and colleagues, Dr. Aaron.
What's up?
And Dr. Mike.
Hey, how y'all doing?
As well as our medical history intern, Alba.
Oh, hey.
Normal by comparison. So, hey. So you guys may remember that the last episode was the first time we announced our Patreon account was live, and that was super exciting. And on this episode, I'm happy to say that we get to introduce our inaugural patron members. That's pretty fun, right?
Woohoo!
Wait, are they called patrons or are they called Patreons?
They're called patrons, I believe. I did look it up at one point, but I think it is patrons. So we don't want to insult them right out of the gate.
Well, we're happy they're here.
They're all saints.
We are, and let's introduce. So these are the inaugural patron members of the Poor Historians podcast house staff. If you did join the Patreon and you don't hear your name this time, don't panic, don't worry. We will get you next time. It's just that we batch our recordings, so you might have gone in right after this recording was done. And so we have 3 patrons to introduce. So here's super special, the first ever patron, the first person to sign up, intern level or otherwise, is our intern patron, Becky. Let's get a thank you for Becky, Mike.
Thank you, Becky.
Oh, it was really normal. I thought it was going to
I
be
know,
weird.
you put me on the spot. I thought it was good. Well, that's really great of Becky to do that.
Very great. And here's the other thing. We have a first ever resident level patron. And that first ever resident level patron is Yulia. Let's get a thank you for Yulia, Aaron.
Oh, I just was snapping.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you, Yulia.
No, he wasn't.
That's
He was...
wonderful.
And even more super excited to thank our first ever fellow level patron, longtime fan of the show, Jay. Jay, thank you so much. Alba, what you got for Jay?
Oh my gosh, Jay, thank you.
Wow.
That's the enthusiasm we're here for. Appreciate it.
No, I'm excited.
Hey, it's a lot of pressure to say thank you in a unique way, so that's what we came up with for the time being. And
Mine was the worst. Can I do mine again?
no, actually, hold on. I've got something for you too. So here's what we need, though. These are the inaugural class, and every inaugural class of resident, fellow, and intern, of course, you need words of wisdom. So I figured, Mike, can you give the inaugural class your words of wisdom
for all the class? So
Yes.
I'm essentially the attending. I guess we're the attendings.
Yeah, correct.
Of this
They need a
hierarchy.
quick pep talk.
Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired. You'll
Yeah,
never
cut
be
it
hungry.
Off there. Oh, never mind. I know how that one ends. And what do you do with the pancreas?
Yeah, you don't.
Don't
F
F with the
don't.
pancreas.
There you go. Words of wisdom. And if you also out there listening want to join our strange and unusual house of medical history, check our links to our Patreon account in the show notes. Hey, with that, let's move on to the next part of the show, Mike's trivia. So before we get to the main part of the show, let's warm up with the Mike's trivia segment. Mike, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm less ready today than I've ever been.
That's
So I would
too
say
bad.
that I'm the least
Wow.
ready. Yeah.
Well, we're going forward either way.
Because you haven't gotten one right yet, have you?
Thanks, Alba.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm
I
so
appreciate
sorry. I
that.
didn't
Yeah.
mean to. I'm so sorry.
Well, this is the part of the show where you send us a medical history trivia question, and we'll see if Mike knows the answer without any preparation. If he gets it wrong, the listener is awarded a contrived medical eponym in their honor. If he does know the answer by chance, and so far that chance has been 0, the opposite of whatever that is happens. No pressure. These are pretty much impossible level questions, though, so let's give Mike some benefit of the doubt there, right? All right, Mike. So your question comes from Tula, who is a longtime listener of the show, big fan, would really like you to nail this one. And that question is, what is pemphigus vulgaris, and when was it properly diagnosed or described?
So pemphigus vulgaris. Can't say it. I hope I
Well, now,
remember
this is a
what it is.
dermatology thing, right? So that
Yeah.
we don't need to know anything about skin as emergency doctors, so anything we know about something like this is bonus.
Yeah, so it's a a skin condition where then the vulgaris has to do with the color of the lesion. So it's this purplish discoloration to the skin. And what did you say? When was it discovered?
Yeah, like when was it discovered and who discovered it?
Yeah.
I'll take either or both.
When was it discovered? 1883. And the doc, and I had mentioned this doc before. I was wrong when I had talked about him, but it is Nikolsky, Dr. Nikolsky. So bullous pemphigoid, he was working on. He had this thing where he would
different skin condition.
Yeah, he would take in people from the street who would have blisters, and he had this thing. It was almost like a compulsion where he would just rip this top layer of skin off of these people just for S's and G's. And he kind of like, after a while, he wasn't even a dermatologist, but he was anointed a dermatology fellow by the Royal College of Surgeons in England in 1883 for his work for unroofing blisters of the homeless people in London.
Indeed.
Dr. Nikolsky, London, 1883, pemphigus vulgaris.
It's the only correct thing is his association with the name. The Nikolsky sign is, I think, why every time we do a skin thing, I think you go there, and I understand
it's the only name that I recall.
We are
from
emergency docs, and skin is weird. Yeah. So pemphigus vulgaris. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you guys ever do that? I'm like, I'm not checking that. They told me about that sign. I'm like, there's no way. They're like, if you scratch the rash, does it come off? I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah, I do it. That. I call it the DJ Jazzy Jeff sign because I just go and see if the skin comes off.
My goodness.
Yeah, no. I'm like, Nikolsky sign not checked.
And it's always pussy discharge. Listeners, please write that down.
Purulent. Don't write that
down. Pussy discharge.
Purulent. Does that work?
Purulent.
Pemphigus vulgaris is a blistering condition of the skin. It's an autoimmune condition where basically the immune system, for whatever reason, decides to attack the layers or attack the attachments of the skin cells, and you get these awful blisters, which, yes, if you push on them, you put pressure, they rip apart. It's Nikolsky sign, and it's like, yeah. The other one, bullous pemphigoid, which is not as gnarly, medically speaking, as vulgaris, the blisters will stay intact. And so here's the real answer. So pemphigus was I believe, Greek term that basically refers to blister. And the first guy to kind of use it with a skin condition like this was a French dude named Boisset de Sauvage. Maybe that's how it's pronounced.
Nailed
Who knows?
it.
He was a French physician and botanist in the 18th century and coined at least that part of the diagnosis. And so it's not common necessarily, but the fact of the matter is this condition was really dangerous. And as of up till 1998, apparently, it was the fourth most common cause of death due to a skin disorder, which is pretty insane. Didn't know that. That's when you started having treatment. Well, not in the 90s, but we had treatments. That's now in the modern age.
Hydrocortisone was invented.
Well, corticosteroids were a first treatment. We have some more modern things here. So the pemphigus part I could find pretty easily. The vulgaris part was harder for me to nail down. The best I can do is to put it at 1798 with I believe, German physician last name is Willan, Willan. And I found this going through a bunch of articles about pemphigus vulgaris that involved a bunch of physicians in the 18th and 19th century coming up with like 90 plus classifications of different blistery skin rashes. And this is the closest name I could find to somebody calling something vulgaris. So I'm going to give it to him. I think it's 1798, Dr. Willan. And I want to say, I hope it's appreciated how many of these esoteric articles and abstracts I had to go through to try to nail this down. But you know what? I'm pretty sure it all pushed a childhood memory out of my head to do that much work and learn this new information. But I did it for our fans. And I'm happy
hopefully
to
it
have
was you
so.
falling off a scooter or something like that.
I did fall off a scooter, I'm pretty sure, more than once. So there we go. Mike, I think we have to award an eponym. I think you missed it by just a decade and
wait, a decade?
Century?
No, I think
century.
It was 90 years.
Oh, you're right, century. But
yeah, just a century. That's all.
That's close.
But that's pretty close for me, honestly. I think that's partial credit range.
Yeah, no, it's partial, but like fractional credit.
I get no comment on this. I'd be so far off.
So Mike, I think we have to give Tula an eponym. So here we go.
I want to do it. I want to give Tula's eponym. I got it. I want to do it.
Oh, okay.
I want to do it.
Okay.
Tula, my friend, you get an eponym. And your eponym is Tula's flawless epidermicosis. This is a skin condition where the skin is so perfectly smooth and unblemished that it defies all conventional expectations, making dermatologists question whether it's even real. Patients with this condition are often mistaken for actors, influences, or CGI characters in real life.
Okay, you did it better than I did.
Yeah, that's right.
That was awesome.
I want to find some stuff for you to sell. Yeah.
I think we have a new eponym reader.
All right, fine. Outvoted. I'll take it.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
If you'd like to send us a question, check out the show notes for links and instructions to do so. Right? It is a filter on Snapchat.
Yeah, those filters are the worst. You look at somebody, you're like, I don't know. Like, that looks look funny, man. I've seen this person in real life, and that's, yeah.
You're like, okay, that's a...
Well, there you go. Mike's trivia concluded. We move on to the main segment. Mike wrote stuff.
Yeah.
Mike has researched exhaustively the annals of history and medicine.
Mm-hmm. I read a portion of a Wikipedia journal. Journal?
Oh, yeah. The Journal of Wikipedia Medicine.
Why do so many of us have annals? I mean, why is that?
There we
Everybody's
go. That's
got
the
an
word
anal.
I was like, is that
Annals of
word?
surgery, annals of emergency medicine, and it's, I don't know, man. I think there's a hidden reason.
Oh.
Freud would have something to go with that. The journal, just emergency medicine journal, or just emergency medicine. You don't even need any other. Or surgery, or right, because you got
like
nature, science, right?
Science.
You just have surgery, dermatology.
Playboy.
You don't need annals in there.
Before Mike makes that connection, go ahead, Mike. Tell us about something that has nothing to do with those two words.
So this is going to be a multi-layered case. We're gonna what I'm looking for from you guys. It's going to be kind of like I'm looking for the person, the condition. You don't have to get the time right, but it's going to be a historical figure. Just kind of
so like a famous person.
A famous person. Yep.
It's like 20 questions.
I'll give you the time. Okay,
Charlie Chaplin.
No. May 4th, 1821.
Grace Kelly.
Your patient has been sick for 6 weeks.
Wait, when?
May 4th. May the 4th. 1821.
Okay.
And so he walks into your office because you have an office. You're not in a clinic, you're in an office.
Okay.
He walks in and it's like, Doc, I don't feel good. Got abdominal pain. I haven't really been pooping all that much. Been vomiting. Been feeling weak. He's a relatively young person. He's 51.
Okay. But in that day and age, it's not very young.
Maybe. It's hard to say.
1821? Again, anyway. Okay. So
I mean, he's going to have another maybe 20 years left. Wasn't it low 70s?
Ooh,
1800s?
I don't know about that. He's
he's already...
Maybe there's
we haven't hit the Spanish flu yet, so we're going to have a little
distribution.
Dip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So 51-year-old doesn't feel good, not pooping well, has belly pain.
Vomiting.
I'm guessing not eating.
Not eating. He tries to eat, but he can't.
Fevers? You got some fevers?
He's got intermittent fevers. They're tactile because they don't have thermometers. Feels warm, gets sweaty.
Does he just throw up right every time he eats? Does he get pain when he eats?
He has pain. Yeah, just pain all the time. Kind of a constant gnawing upper abdominal pain.
Like existential pain, or in the abdomen?
No, like physical, visceral pain, not somatic pain.
No.
Just
Is blood coming out of anywhere?
Well, we're kind of assuming. So they said that his vomit looked like coffee grounds.
Okay.
And he'd had some maroonish stool.
Those aren't good things.
What's he do for a living?
Yeah. He was in the service.
Okay. The postal service?
No, the military service.
Oh, okay. Which branch of the service?
The cavalry.
Okay. Did he get injured in the war?
He had been injured in multiple wars, yes.
Multiple wars?
Nothing ever documented. But there was thoughts that he had a traumatic
nothing
brain
documented,
injury.
like he was low-key
No,
injured?
everything was documented. It wasn't researched.
Soldier, did you get shot? Nope. You're
No,
bleeding through
I don't believe that there was
uniform.
ever any puncture wounds,
Oh, okay.
but maybe a couple head injuries.
Okay. All right.
Is he a drinker?
He's a drinker. Yeah.
What was his horse's name?
The horse had no name.
The horse, I don't know.
Ridden through the desert.
He's had many horses.
Can I follow up on that? The coffee grounds, I just want the explanation of the coffee grounds is assumed blood that's been like sitting there for a little while.
Yep.
If you throw it up and it looks like coffee grounds.
Yep. Yeah. So blood in
Okay.
the stomach is going to get digested and it's going to look like coffee grounds.
Okay.
And it has a very particular odor to it as well.
Your
Yeah, it's
stomach has a
stinky.
pH around 2, right? If I remember right.
Yep. So very acidic environment.
Mm.
Yeah, like as acidic as some of your standard variety hardware acids. Let's see.
Wow.
Okay. So he's got all this, the diarrhea, all that sort of thing. And then is anybody else sick around him?
No, he's the only one.
The only one.
Wait,
huh?
did you say
Mhm.
diarrhea or constipation?
Well, so he
Constipation.
said constipation,
sorry.
but he's also had some blood in his stool, but he really hasn't been moving his bowels all that much. But he's been trying to eat just kind of, clear liquids as much as he can get in.
Mm.
Can you tell me his name by chance?
That's what
No.
we're supposed to guess.
Wait, that's
I was trying to trick the
that's
patient
part of the mystery.
and the mic.
Yeah. Everybody on this island knows who he is.
We're on an island?
Yep.
Is it Gilligan?
Okay. Does he take any medicines or heavy metals regularly?
Potentially. There's a
Yeah.
chance. He's been doing treatments of the time. I believe that there was some calomel ingested. There may have been some tincture
Sure.
of arsenic.
See, Robinson Crusoe?
No,
Hmm.
it's
That
not
real
an
person? I don't
It's
think
not
it's
a
a
real
person.
person, is it?
It might be an amalgamation of people.
Okay. Is he
Ulysses S. Grant.
1820s? I don't know. Might be a young Grant, but I guess that's possible. How long has he been this way, by the way? How long has this been going on?
So 6 weeks. Now it's really coming to a head. He's like the worst that he's looked.
Hmm.
How does
Fair
he
enough.
have
Decrease in-
So that doesn't fit.
Yeah, try not to focus too much on that.
Okay. Blood's a laxative. So
Think of upper abdominal discomfort. So he's got a lot of upper abdominal pain. You ask a family history, and his father had similar symptoms before he died.
Hmm.
that's not good.
It doesn't help you.
You don't know what it helps. Maybe it does.
It's just an aside.
Tobacco. Does he use tobacco?
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay.
So there are a lot of things we probably don't see anymore that'll be on the list. Like now this sounds like an ulcer, except he's constipated. So that's
Okay.
weird. But the coffee
Mike said not to
ground
focus
says-
on that, though.
Yeah, because the way the constipation was really kind of a description, maybe more so of his constitution. Like he's just not moving his bowels.
Yeah,
quite
remember,
like he
this was a
normally would.
time they were obsessed with bowel movements and how often you had to have them.
As opposed to
I
now
know.
when I had to spend 3 years of my life going into the room at 5 a.m. and asking somebody if they pooped that isn't awake yet. When I was a medical student, sir, wake up. Did you poop?
I'm
God.
sure it's
Oh,
happening.
so, but if he hasn't really been able to keep food down, then that kind of makes sense. He wouldn't really be pooping. And if they were obsessed with how much poop you're having, then they would just be like, well, he's constipated.
Yeah, and at one point in his life, there would have been people documenting almost everything that he did.
Mm.
Is
Oh, really?
he, did
Why-
he
why is
ever
that?
have a career as a professional wrestler?
No, he did not.
I'm out, guys. I
How
don't know.
about
I can't
circus
help.
performer? Was he a circus performer?
No,
Can you tell us whose military he was in?
France.
Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
Gives it
He's a
away.
French guy.
Is his name Napoleon?
It is
Ah.
Oh.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh,
I saw his
cool.
movie recently. We're going to talk about the movie at all?
Well, no. So,
By
so
the way,
No, we're
I won't
not.
get into details, but a really awkward movie to go watch with your parent.
Oh,
why?
I won't get into details.
well, yeah.
So a few graphic scenes that are a little bit sudden. I mean,
Well, did it go into how he died? Did the movie end before that? Probably ends up with him on the island and then back
He's-
on the island again.
it was like 3 or 4 weeks long as a movie, and so by the end, I remember the end roughly, but my head was already ringing from like cannon fire for 3 hours of that movie. So I don't
Mhm.
remember all the specifics, and I remember thinking, I don't know that any of this movie is historically accurate. So
Yeah, well, this podcast isn't either. It was really, yeah. So the funny thing is, so this isn't the funny thing. I'm going to make sure that I don't say the next thing right after I say that. But so he had stomach cancer and a bunch of ulcers. He essentially had died from stomach cancer and most likely anemia from bleeding ulcers.
Okay. Yeah, kind of.
So anorexia is, in the medical sense, is always a little bit ominous.
Mm-hmm.
So if like you go into the ER and they ask you, like I was trained for appendicitis, like you ask people, like, if I put your favorite meal in front of you, would you eat it? And,
Right.
you
And
know,
you should probably distinguish that from the eating disorder. When we say anorexia in this
Right.
case, we're saying like basically you have zero desire to eat because something is happening in your abdomen.
right.
Mm-hmm.
As a
Yeah, a
symptom,
physical
not
thing.
a condition. So distinct from anorexia nervosa.
That's an interesting aside because the problem that Napoleon had is that the office that he went into was actually a psychiatrist's office.
Oh no!
What?
Psychiatrist is like, you
In this story, it was.
tell me about your mother.
So he goes in there, he's saying all this stuff, and then he gets diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder.
Well, probably true,
And-
but that's accurate.
I can't
So-
tell anymore when you're joking.
Yeah,
Not that I
no.
ever could tell,
So-
but
Yeah, so Napoleon is the Trojan horse because I didn't know how in history we could talk about some of these like mental health things. You know, we kind of did it with walking corpse syndrome. So Napoleon is one of those figures through history that has been looked at posthumously by a lot of different psychiatrists and diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder.
Oh, so you're using Napoleon to focus on that
Yeah.
and just throwing a curveball with his, yeah.
So that's why the constipation, all that stuff wasn't important. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I feel like nowadays narcissism is like all over everything. You know, like you do something for yourself and like you're a classic narcissist. Then there's like the malignant narcissist. Everybody's talking about, I don't know
It's
if it's
hot.
like my
It's
curated
pop.
social media feed or
yeah, pop psychology is.
Maybe
all
we can
over
analyze Mike while we're
narcissism.
doing this.
you could try. But
Have you been looking into any pools to see your reflection?
well, let's get into that. So the initial story of Narcissus. I mean, Max, we've all heard the story, right? The story is way more stupid when you actually read it. It's like, who's going to take a lesson from this stuff? Like, and I don't even know that it was
Ancient Greeks?
Yeah, I know. But so like Narcissus was a hunter and he apparently was just this gorgeous human, right? Like
This is the Greek mythology, right?
the Greek mythology, yeah. So he's noticed by all, regardless of gender. So like guys were like, wow, that guy's handsome. Girls were like, oh man, that guy's so hot. And he apparently was born from like his mother and then a river god. And there's some other messed up stuff that happened to him. So most likely this generational trauma that he passed along. No. But he
That's what happens. Yep.
yeah, so Narcissus how would you say
There's a
the
lot of
plural
S's.
Narcissus.
Yeah,
Narcissus. His mother took him to see
Go
a
for
seer who predicted that the boy would live a long life only if he never came to know himself, which is also interesting and also in pop psychology as it relates to like what we think is narcissism. So when he was 16, a forest nymph named Echo fell in love with him. And he was essentially like, yeah, you're gross. I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Oh, that ain't nice.
Echo's heartbroken. And then Nemesis, who is the goddess of revenge, saw this happen. And
It's a good name
then-
for her.
right? So she proclaimed that he would never be able to be loved by the one he fell in love with.
Because he was mean to Echo.
Yeah. So truly, like he was in love with himself. So she's saying like, you'll never have self-love. Then the whole, like it gets distilled down to this story where he looks at his reflection. He thinks he's so hot. And then he starves to death because he can't do anything but look at his reflection. And my thought was, he wouldn't get dehydrated and die because he was by water. Why wouldn't you just put your hand in the thing? But maybe that would mess
I
up
love
his
that
reflection.
I can't have it, but I'm thirsty. So like a little water.
And
I'm
then
gonna
he-
kiss myself.
Yeah. So then he turned
and
into a
then he'll
flower.
drink. Then he turned into a flower.
So, narcissism as we know it is like this self-centered personality style. But I just wanted to just throw out the differences between like narcissistic personality disorder and narcissistic traits.
Okay.
Where I think we use those
Snaps.
interchangeably.
Snaps
right?
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have narcissistic traits, you have this excessive preoccupation in yourself and your own needs, and often at the expense of others. And it's on a spectrum. There's, I think a lot of psychologists, maybe Alba, you agree with this too, like a moderate degree of narcissism is probably important for some people and actually it's normal and healthy.
Yeah, everybody can have some narcissistic behaviors. Like you said, it's on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win the what's the reality show where you're on the island? Like I know there's a billion reality shows. Yeah, you're not going to win that without
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, really. The Isle of Capri challenge. You're not going to. You will have to have some for self-preservation to get through those sort of things. So I guess I can see that.
And we do too a little bit. It used to be called hubris. So the hubris and narcissism are kind of interchangeable. Hubris is the really old term that we still occasionally use. They diagnosed Napoleon back in the day with God complex, but a lot of physicians
short man
can have
syndrome
this.
too.
He wasn't short. Well, he was like 6'1", I think.
What? Napoleon was not 6'1".
I don't know. I saw something in there because it was like one article's like he was short, and then this other.
Here you go.
I think the thing is he didn't have short man syndrome. He had narcissistic personality disorder.
Gotcha. I don't know. Is Alba short man syndrome in the DSM?
Not that I saw.
Okay,
but it's a big book. I could.
I figured if anybody had it completely memorized, front to back.
If it were through osmosis, I would. It's always right next to me.
5'6" to 5'7", Britannica says.
Oh, okay, so he's pretty short.
For the time, he was fine. The average for most Frenchmen was 5'2" to 5'6".
I like to say, I'm not short. I'm concise.
So,
I'm gonna go take over a country.
You should.
Are you 5'7"?
Which country would you pick?
5'6". Which country would I pick?
Luxembourg. Because the capital is named Luxembourg, and then I'll just name all the cities Luxembourg, and then I wouldn't ever get confused about where I was.
Or you would always be confused about where you were.
Yeah.
It's a way better thought out plan than I would have given you credit for. Okay, so Napoleon you're saying he has narcissistic...
It's weird, because, and this is the other thing too, they'll always say you can't, only a trained clinical psychologist or psychiatrist can diagnose somebody that's in their office after an interview. Like we can't do that remotely. We'll watch TV shows like, oh, that person's a narcissist. Like they're exhibiting narcissistic traits, but you can't definitively diagnose them.
Well, but how do you explain Dr. Phil?
Yeah. Well, he's got some hubris.
Yeah.
So the term is this Greek mythology, and it doesn't get used in psychiatry until 1889. So these two psychiatrists kind of coined the term or used the term to describe this personality disorder about the same time. So it was Paul Knack and Havelock Ellis. They said they used this to describe people that treat their own bodies in the same way. In the same way that a sexual partner is treated. So like
that's how they decided to describe the disorder.
Yeah, but coming around the corner is Freud, right? So like this is his. They're like kind of getting him ready, for all of his kind of sexual things, right?
Oh, just a few things.
Yeah. So it's in 1913. There's a paper written. It's considered a character trait to be narcissistic. They call it the God complex. A lot of the same kind of features that we'll go through later. And in 1914, Freud published his own theory on narcissism. And he refers to the individual's libidinal energy toward themselves. So essentially like self-love.
Mm-hmm.
But libido is a weird way to say it. Sounds more
it's
like
a Freud
self-lust.
way to say everything.
Yeah.
You're going to be something sexually preoccupied in Freud's world. So it seems to be the less weird of all the other ways that he imagined.
Right? Yeah. I will treat myself as if I treat my sexual partners. What a weird conversation too. Like, did psychiatrists? I don't know. I just don't feel like.
I think there's a lot of
psychiatrists
along that time where Freud's like writing all this stuff, just kind of looking at it and then kind of looking at each other and going, I don't know.
Did they they just wanted to talk about sex, but they couldn't, so they made it doctor speak?
I think you might be right.
Yeah,
you might be right. Alba, was Freud right about anything? I don't know. You're the closest to a DSM right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he was right about something. We're all a little right and a little wrong, right?
All right, fair enough.
Right.
Yeah, all a little right, a little wrong.
Yeah, 1925 is considered a personality trait. 1939, it's thought to exist on a spectrum from healthy self-esteem to a pathological state, but not to the pathological state.
So it's like almost pathological. It's subpathological.
Almost, but then you get to the personality disorder after that. So in 1979, so Aaron and I were both alive when
I was not. Just pointing that out.
I wasn't either, just if anybody's wondering.
He writes a paper. He's like, the term narcissism is indiscriminately applied in culture.
Who is this?
Which is interesting because it's a psychiatrist by the name of Christopher Lasch.
Huh. Cool. Okay.
And this is the way the world kind of separated themselves from us. At some point, I think back in the 70s and 80s, it's not included in the International Classification of Diseases. So that's the foreign DSM-4. I know we're at the 5, but that was the 4 counterpart. And they suggested that it's an American illness.
Okay.
I mean,
So it wasn't even
looking at
Yeah,
us,
just us.
kind of
Okay.
fair. Kind of fair.
I know.
Yeah, but we have the best illnesses.
So they thought that applied to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And are you guys familiar with that?
Psych 101 level.
Yeah, I would explain.
Yeah, same
heard
here.
it.
Well, so yeah, but essentially they were saying that narcissism is a problem in America because we have our basic needs met. So therefore you kind of go lower on Maslow's hierarchy.
Right. And the hierarchy is stuff like, isn't it like shelter and like...
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah, it's
pyramid,
basic
and the most
needs and
basic
then-
needs are at the
Yeah.
bottom, and then as you go up, you move
Yeah, like
through.
safety,
so the
relationships,
romantic
yeah.
love is in there, and then there's
My hierarchy needs are shelter, food, video games, and romantic love. Yes.
Yeah.
Wrestling
And wrestling.
is in there too.
and then the top one is like self-actualization, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
top, the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy is kind of narcissistic. Now that I think about it, because I think it's
Because
self-actualization
it
or
has to do
something
with
like
the self. But they argued that the rest, at least the developing world, they would never have this because they would never achieve such like self-importance because they're trying to survive.
that. Yeah, but what about all of Europe? They have their basic needs. They've had their basic needs met since the 1400s when they took all the stuff from everyone else,
Mhm.
including us.
Yeah, but they've got like smaller portion sizes for the meals.
They still have needs. I'm so hungry. I'm so
The
hungry.
hierarchy of the Cheesecake Factory. My cousin had visited years ago, and we went to the Cheesecake Factory. We went out to eat a couple times, and every single time,
Is your cousin not from here?
he's from Australia.
Okay, I was like, that
So
seems important.
every single time, I was like, oh, these portions are so huge. Like every single time, I was like, oh, this is disgusting. Yeah. So the reason I wanted to talk about this again is because when people say narcissism, I think they are saying that this person then has narcissistic personality disorder, which is an exceedingly rare condition that we believe that Napoleon most likely had. So
Okay.
it's characterized by a lifelong pattern of exaggerated feelings of self-importance, an excessive need for admiration, and a diminished ability to empathize with other people's feelings. And you need to have the like life disruptions in there. You can't just be
Mhm.
like a normal functioning person, have like you need to have some disruption to your life.
And that's like the defining factor on most of the disorders, if not all of them, is like where it changes from like, oh, this is just a trait that I have. This is just like, like depression. I feel sad sometimes, versus like it's disrupting your personal life, your work life. It's like it's created an inability to function. So now it's moved into like disorder territory.
Correct. Yeah, and it's one of the cluster B personality disorders, and they think it's really kind of separate and maybe shouldn't be.
You're gonna drop a cluster, the
Yeah,
word
well,
cluster,
you get
and walk off.
Borderline personality disorder.
So it's a way.
Histrionic.
Clusters are like ways to group different psychological or mental health diagnoses into
Wasn't it
kind
just
of categories that like have some, I don't know, some similarity, I guess.
Yeah, there's a
That's the way
lot
I
of
thought about it.
overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
if you look at
There's cluster A, B, and C, right?
for personality
Yeah.
disorders only, right?
I think so. Yeah.
and then the B, you got antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic, borderline, histrionic. A lot of them have overlapping themes.
But these are not like, these are people that are not functional. Like if a bad personality disorder, they might, like they're really, really pathologic versus the trait. Because you can have somebody who, I don't know, like I feel like people that truly have like antisocial personality disorder or whatnot, like they're, they're scary. And one of the go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say that because antisocial personality disorder sounds like you're antisocial, like you don't like to be around people, but that's the newer version of, oh my gosh, I can't remember the two. I can't remember them now. Sociopaths and psychopaths. Yeah. So so those are like the scary, dangerous ones.
Right. So like Jeffrey Dahmer was antisocial, right? Like that level of I don't care and I don't have empathy and I'll do what I want.
Yeah, it's the empathy piece. It was interesting. They interviewed. Napoleon had a lot of interviews where they asked him about like battles and things like that, and people thought maybe he had PTSD. Again, after the fact, they were looking at some of the things he said, and apparently there's a scale, and he only was positive for 2 of the criteria on the scale, and it's because he lacked empathy. He like did not care if he lost 10,000 men. He's like, yeah, whatever.
Couldn't even get PTSD because he wasn't afraid for his life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because he did, and again, he had a God complex too, and that's why, he kind of like appointed himself emperor, right? It wasn't like he's just like
more or
less
how the movie portrayed.
Yeah. And then they exile him, and he's like, well, I'm not going to stay here anymore. I'm going to go back to France. And they went back to France and built a 20,000 person army. And like, again, he's just like, not
an underachiever in many respects.
No.
I would say.
And that's often like those narcissistic traits are like, I need to be better than everybody else. But yeah, the patterns here though are like they're maladaptive and they're inflexible. So like, it's hard for these personality disorders, especially in adulthood. You're probably not going to fix them. They're just a part of who you are. Narcissistic personality disorders often associated with other psychiatric illnesses. It's usually like a comorbid thing. Like you have something like schizophrenia and this.
Yeah, fair. Did you come across anybody else who in history was diagnosed with this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think about all the main world leaders that are associated with a big global conflict, a lot of leader types, celebrities,
all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them. I mean, all of them in like the 1940s for sure. Like
sure.
Every one of them.
But it seems like there's a contradiction because like, even though a lot of the disorder, like the true disorder form is detrimental to one's daily life. I mean, if Napoleon had it, he obviously achieved quite a bit.
Well, but that's the hard part, though, is because there has to be dysfunction. But where is the dysfunction? It's like the dysfunction. He may be a really good military leader, but maybe, at home.
It's not that there's no wins. It's just that there are. I see what you're saying. So it's like.
Yeah, I think it's often in personal relationships where, like the cluster B personality disorders, somebody like a good pointer toward a cluster B is poor relationships, like not having long-term kinds of relationships.
Yeah, more so interpersonal. And those are the people that are going to know about these. Like you might meet somebody with histrionic personality disorder and think like, man, they're a really good storyteller and they're really interesting. And like, I want to be around them. And then they get home and then their significant others like, I hate being around them because they're just jerks. Like same with the narcissist. Like me, I'm the CEO of this company and the mover and shaker, and you get home and you're just a jerk to your wife, like
imagine
it's often the way that it goes. So the DSM, we'll just go over that real quick. The DSM-5, because that's always interesting to read those. But somebody with this is going to have a grandiose sense of self-importance. We already talked about that. A preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Believing that they're special or unique and can only be understood by few, usually high status people. They require excessive admiration. They have a sense of entitlement. They're interpersonally exploitative. So they take advantage of others to gain things. Sure. They lack empathy. They're often envious of others and they're arrogant. And from firsthand accounts with Napoleon, he had 7 of the 9.
Okay.
So that's why they think fairly, there was, who else was I going to look? There was a couple other people I could have looked at, but.
I was going to say, is there did you come across anything like in the history of all of this? Is treatment effective? Like,
no, because here's the thing. So it's a part of your personality. You could do cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's one of, sorry to aside, but like I remember answering on medical school tests, like, what is the treatment for this mental health disorder? And I would put like cognitive behavioral therapy, which was the answer. But if you actually took a second to be like, what does that mean? I would have no idea. It was just, I knew it was a test answer.
Yeah, it's a real deep psychotherapy, but the issue is that these people already are so arrogant and they only associate with high status people, and they are right. So when they have somebody that challenges them, that immediately triggers their personality disorder to attack them, and they say, no, you're wrong. I would say that they either won't go to therapy or go to therapy once or twice.
My favorite quote about when I was learning about narcissistic personality disorder, about the treatment of it, my favorite quote was that progress is often glacial. And if it does happen, it's not enough for the people around them to feel like any significant change has been made.
Oh, it's
so to answer your question, Max.
Thank you.
Not really, no.
No.
It's
and
untreatable.
It sucks. It sucks.
But it's their personality. It's like a personality issue. So it'd be hard to change your personality in your 20s or 30s. You know, it's already formed.
Is there anybody that is a world leader or famous celebrity or CEO that's high achieving that does not have all of these traits?
Yeah, well,
Tom Hanks.
because
Tom Hanks.
Besides
Keanu Reeves.
Except we all had to know he had COVID, didn't we? We all had to know.
But we can't do that without doing an interview with these people. You know, like as a
Do
a
you
disclaimer.
think we can get Tom Hanks on the show?
Well, but here, like, I would argue that Tom Hanks does not publicly often show arrogant or haughty behaviors or attitudes.
Right. I'm saying
we don't know if he lacks empathy or not because we've, never been in an interpersonal relationship with him. We don't know if he's exploitative of people, like maybe he had to be to get to where he is, but he might not be. A sense of entitlement, I don't know. Like he might hold doors open for people. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a strong possibility that he's not, and the strong possibility that many celebrities aren't, that they might have traits, but not, one of the issues is that when you get this admiration, it's almost like you can get, they mentioned this a little bit with celebrities, like somebody interviewed Madonna and she had all of this attention and then it immediately triggered the need for more attention, and almost to the point where then she was like, it was pathologized then. Like if I don't have the attention, then there's something wrong with me.
She also did name herself Madonna. So I feel like out of the gate, it's a pretty
high
self-admitted title.
Wait, what's her Lord? What was her name?
Lord,
yeah.
Was that her?
What's Lord's real name?
Now she put an E on the end though.
Yeah, so that makes it.
No,
better.
that's Lord. Well, that's Lord. Oh, I wasn't saying Lord. I thought that was.
You mean Madonna's real name?
Or like, her actual name.
Vicky Grabowski.
Vicky Grabowski.
Vicky.
Dicky?
Vicky with a V.
Are you saying Dicky?
I think he's saying Dicky.
I knew a guy named Dicky.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. He was nice, yeah.
Yeah?
Putting that out there. Anybody's wondering.
Hey, Albert, how you doing? Hey, Dicky.
Hey, Dicky. I did. I said, hey, Dicky.
Is that moonshine done? Oh, yeah. Got to keep it in the trunk for another couple of weeks. I'll be back.
Now, Dicky was not a narcissist. I don't think anyway.
Shout out to Dicky.
So, yeah, the overall prevalence of this personality disorder is 0.8 to 6.2%. 6.2% seems really high. That's a population.
That's a wide.
That's a huge amount of people that would have that.
I know. Just thinking about it now, 6.2% times 350 million.
That's a lot of narcissists.
And also, how are you going to know if essentially, as you said, you need the person to be in your office to be able to interview them, to get all the questions and everything for the diagnosis. And if they don't think anything is wrong with them, what percentage of the population could be narcissists that never contact the system or are never formally diagnosed?
I would say most of them.
Yeah.
So maybe, my hypothesis initially was that we shouldn't use the term so loosely because then we're going to tell people that they have narcissistic personality disorder. But now, doing simple math in my head, we actually might have just proven that there are more than we thought there were. And let it fly. You're a narcissist. So.
Interesting.
Okay, and then I'll end with a quote, and you guys have to tell me who this is, but it has to do with narcissism. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. Children now are tyrants, and they tyrannize their teachers.
Who is it? Who said that?
Yeah.
Like any New York Times columnist, most boomers.
Children are tyrants.
Tyrants.
That Dr.
That sounds
Phil.
like a very Socrates.
Wow.
Oh, Socrates.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a cool pull.
So
that's cool.
That's 470. That's in 470.
It's good to know they've always
BC.
been tyrants.
Right.
say.
So this is not a new thing. I think we just need to slow our rolls and just go with it. And if you think someone's a narcissist, then don't engage with them.
Or get them to a psychiatrist to sit down and have a long, protracted
To finally
conversation
get it,
with
you'd be
them.
like, I knew it.
Make sure you obtain the diagnosis and know that treatment is extremely resistant.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if
What's the
that's
point
satisfying.
what's the point of getting a diagnosis then?
Well,
If it's untreatable.
Sometimes you just like to know.
I mean, it's useful in medicine if you're engaging with somebody who has, say, borderline personality disorder. You can know what they're going to try to do to you, and then when they do it, you're just like, cool. You're splitting me.
It's a good
It's
point.
fine. So, like, if I go talk to somebody who has borderline personality disorder, and they're like, "You are the best doctor I've ever seen in the whole world," and that other doctor sucked, I'm like, So you just split us. You just put us on the two sides. That is a symptom of your person. I'm not going to fall for that. Except when I'm a narcissist and I'm like, oh, you're right. I am actually the best doctor.
And then you have no empathy and you're like,
yeah, no. It gets, but like you can those, they're useful because when you engage with folks that have that diagnosis, then you can recognize how the communication might be different.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. You often just have a feeling. You're like,
That's what I was taught. I was taught if you have you're in a conversation and you have this strange feeling within yourself that can be a sign that there's a personality disorder at play. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
All right. Well, that about wrap it up there, Mike?
that wraps it up.
All right. Well, so Alba, since you were... Ooh, I forgot to write something for this. Alba, since you are the...
How you doing there, Max?
I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head.
I'm trying to think of what I learned, so it's okay. Take your time.
Okay, perfect. So we're at a gambit.
She already knew all this stuff.
No, I didn't. I knew a lot of it.
So Alba, since you are the medical history intern voted to have the best handwriting out of all of us, what was the most interesting thing you learned today?
I learned that Napoleon Bonaparte died of stomach cancer and throwing up coffee ground looking bloody vomit.
And
There it
with
is.
his narcissistic personality disorder. Well, with that, we appreciate everyone listening. We'd love to hear from all of you out there. If you'd like to check out our merchandise or provide feedback, we can be reached through our website, www.poorhistorianspod.com. There you can send us messages and find links to our social media sites. We do work to respond to all posts on those accounts. If you would like to participate in the shows, use our site to send us a medical history trivia question. And if you're looking for a way to contribute to the show and be a special part of the House of Medical History, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/poorhistorianspodcast. A free way to support us is to tell a friend about us or go and leave us a nice 5-star review on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever platform you choose. And if you're a gamer, just want to hang out while someone else, being me, plays video games, check me out on Twitch via the link in our show notes. Until next time, the Poor Historians are sending out Ayame.